if we are able to structure our life and have things a certain way, we have control. We can control our life. But Uranus says, nope, you have no control. That's an illusion. Hi, welcome to Beyond and Within Astrology. We are still on the series of the astrological archetypes, and today we are going to talk about the first outer planet, if I would say so, which is Uranus. When we talk about the outer planets, we are starting to go kind of beyond the boundaries of just everyday experience as we always experience it, and we go a little bit more meta, if we want to say so. The planets Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, in my understanding and my experience, have more to do with things in life that are more unconscious, behind the curtain, and also span more over all of society. And Uranus being the first of those, we talk about a planet that takes about 7 years in one sign. When Uranus goes, around the zodiac, it takes 7 years in one sign. It's quite a long time. That is double the time that Saturn spends in a sign. And so we can understand that, when Uranus enters a sign, for the next about 7 years, all the people that are born are going to have Uranus in that sign. And therefore, when we look at a person's chart and we see Uranus in a sign, we can kind of talk to them about their generation or the period of time that they were born in and what kind of things happened in that period. That's the first thing we need to know about one of these three outer planets. Of course, you can look at the house that Uranus is in a person's sign, and that is more personal because the houses change quite fast in a person's chart, and so that's why the time of birth is so important, because you need to know the house that someone's born in or that a planet is in at the time that they're born in. So the house will be more specific and personal to you when it comes to Uranus, but the sign is more of a generational, era kind of thing. Uranus has to do with change. And it's interesting that Uranus takes about 7 years to go through the sign, because we have these sayings in society, the 7 years of marriage, and people say the cursed 7th year, where you really get tested in your marriage and where people suddenly realize they changed a lot and there's obstacles that the marriage needs to overcome because of these changes, because they realize more who they are, because they've gone through these changes over the last 7 years. And it's kind of a test to see, from the last 7 years, are we able to make it beyond that? Are we able to make it past? So people have this saying that, the 7th year of marriage can be a big challenge, where a lot of marriages supposedly break apart and all that. Also, within 7 years, according to biology, as far as I understand, your body has completely renewed all the cells. So you're a new person after 7 years. You're a new body. And I don't know what it does also to the structures of your brain, in 7 years, what all there happens. But I think we can rest assured that within 7 years of life, there's a lot of change happening. Not just in us and around us, but in the world itself as well. So Uranus really is the planet that, after Saturn, who has to do with structure and limitations and boundaries and structuring reality, and you can watch that video on Saturn that we did last time right there if you need to refresh or watch it first. But Saturn, the planet of structures and boundaries, and the planet that says no and has these structured ways of doing things and paths, now comes Uranus and says, okay, change all that. Let's change all that. Let's screw these boundaries that were set and these structures, and let's just change everything. When Uranus transits through a sign on your chart, or aspects of planet in your chart, there's oftentimes really sudden changes happening. Uranus is this kind of electric change energy that really throws things overboard, and suddenly you need to deal with something that you didn't have to deal with before. So very different to Saturn, who likes things to be a certain way, likes things to be predictable, and wants things to be structured. Here comes Uranus and just throws this all overboard. And the interesting thing is also that Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius in modern astrology, or co-rules together with Saturn. So they're such different planets, really, where Saturn is so structured and Uranus wants to throw structures overboard and change. We also need to understand, and this is where the meta perspective comes in, that when we really look at reality, nothing ever stays the same. You cannot name one thing that you experience that always is the same. Your body changes, your opinions change, your relationships change, your environment changes. Anything you could name that's in your experience does change over time. And in the course of 7 years, for sure, has changed somehow. And that's the meta reality, I think, that Uranus comes, where at Saturn we arrive at this point where it's like, okay, yeah, reality is structured. Yeah, and not everything can be free space. We need to have safety. We need to have structures. And if we just stay there, everything's going to be fine. If we are able to structure our life and have things a certain way, we have control. We can control our life. But Uranus says, nope, you have no control. That's an illusion. Control's an illusion. Why? Because you can't ever make sure that anything stays the same. You can't ever make sure that things just continue going the way that you've set them up or that you've experienced them so far. Change always comes. And the older you get, the more you're going to realize that, And a lot of our suffering, and with that I mean our mental, like distress and stressed outness and anxiety and everything, comes from the fact that we want to live in a Saturn being the end-all kind of world where we have control and we know how things work. We want to live in that kind of world because it gives us the feeling of safety and control, and we don't want change often because change means now we have to reinvent everything. Now we have to change the way we tackle things, the way our everyday life goes, and it's just hard for us. Uranus is just this planet that continually will bring us into this experience of, that's never going to happen. You're never going to have everything the same. So a lot of our mental suffering comes from the fact that we're trying to hold on to reality as it is right now, or we want things to be a certain way. And if they are not the way we want them to be, then we're trying to push toward that, and we're trying to push things out of our experience that we don't want to be that way. And we keep thinking that we have some kind of agency over how reality is going to be structured for us. But our agency is really, really small. Really, the only thing we can control is how we respond to things. And even that oftentimes is out of our control. If something happens to me that really upsets me, it is hard for me to control how I'm acting. So this erratic nature of reality really is what Uranus brings to us and brings us in contact with, and continually tells us, hey, nope, this is not going to stay like this. There will be change. As we go to the outer planets, it's really important for us to, if we understand the archetype and we see it in everyday life, the change that happens, to really start pointing out how these things manifest in our life. Where is change continually happening? And we're going to soon start realizing, if we make this a practice, that change is happening everywhere, all the time, no exceptions at all. The way I was thinking 7 years ago is completely different than the way I think now. The opinions I have on life, and because of more knowledge, or because of throwing certain knowledge overboard, my spiritual beliefs, everything has changed. And yeah, some people are more steady in certain aspects of their life, but even if they are more steady in that, then the environment is still going to change, and they still have to adapt to the environment according to the things that they hold on to. Like if you're steady in your beliefs, well, your environment still changes, so you still have to respond to the changing environment out of your steady beliefs. You still have to adapt in some sense. This is a really important aspect, and I think the 3 outer planets really can teach us how to have a worldview, because they're so kind of like satellites looking at the whole thing, and the further out you go, the more inclusive and understanding this view becomes. If we understand their message, then we can really get a worldview that's more flexible and adaptive and more healthy in some sense. So that's why Uranus is so important to compare to Saturn, where we go from let's restructure things so that they work. That's the Saturn kind of aspect of Aquarius, to let's continually go forward. That's the Uranus side of Aquarius. Let's continually progress. It's the utopian kind of aspect of Aquarius, you know, where Aquarius looks at the world like a satellite and it's like, okay, how can we make this perfect? How can we make this better? That's the utopian kind of approach. And Uranus brings this like, okay, everything needs to continually go forward. Nothing can just stay the same, because as soon as we stay the same in any aspect, we're working against reality. We're working against what the universe is really doing. Nothing in the universe ever stays the same. Nothing in the universe ever holds still for us in reality. And that's the other aspect of Aquarius, that Aquarius really has an intuitive desire to move forward for all of humanity. So yeah, whatever house Uranus is in for you, or whatever house it transits through, you can expect change there. You can expect, for example, if Uranus is in the house of philosophy for you in the 9th, that your philosophies about life are going to continually change and progress. And it's not going to be an area where you are static, but you're going to continually change your worldview. Or if it's in the house of finances and possessions in the 2nd house, then there will be a constant flux and change when it comes to your financial security, to your material possessions and everything. So you might be a person that moves around a lot and changes houses or changes jobs and everything. And so there will be a lot of change all the time in that area. So that's how you can understand Uranus in your chart. Okay. If you have things to share, experiences, how Uranus showed up in your life and how these changes happened for you, or how you maybe realized at some point that everything is always changing, comments below. Let's talk about it. Like and subscribe. And check our website out if you want to book something or just look at it. It looks great. My wife did a great job. And we see you next time.